Thank you, Casey. I don't know about you, Verity, but I never feel old enough to have done all of those things. But the grey hairs betray me, I'm afraid. Thank you again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Minister and colleagues. It's our great pleasure to be with you this morning to share with you some, but as the Minister said, we can't say too much about our findings and the New South Wales Vet report. We've been at it for 12 months. It's amazing. The time has flown. We've done thousands of kilometres. We've done hundreds of conversations. We've, what else have we done, Verity? We've read umpteen reports and of course we've seen probably too many PowerPoint presentations, which is why we don't have one for you today. As Casey said, I'm a Ewan man, so I'm off country here today. So I want to start, of course, by paying respects to this country and acknowledging the Darug people for their custodianship of these lands and really honouring their deep connection to the land, the wisdom of their elders and their strength and resilience in maintaining one of the world's oldest surviving cultures. And I extend that respect and acknowledgement to other First Nations people here today. For us, I think the importance of acknowledging and supporting our Aboriginal learners can't be overstated. As we gather here today, under the theme of preparing VET for the future, we remember that this land has been a place of teaching, learning and sharing of ideas for thousands of years, thousands of generations, in fact. First Peoples have a wealth of knowledge that has been passed down through the generations. This knowledge is a part of our history and our identity as a state. And it is an invaluable resource that enriches all of us and holds some of the clues and perhaps provides a pivotal role in shaping education for the future. Today, as I say, Verity and I are going to speak to you a little bit about our work on the New South Wales Vet Review. As the Minister said, a key government election commitment. Our chair, Dr Michelle Brunninges, can't be with us this morning and offers her apologies. But I can confidently say that Michelle, Verity and I have all deemed it a great honour and a privilege to be part of the review process. As the Minister has mentioned, we were engaged to undertake a detailed examination of the current vet system in New South Wales and advised the government on what it can do better, thinking boldly, strategically and with an eye to the future. From the start, we recognised that a comprehensive review requires robust and inclusive consultation, and we committed to that by making public consultation the cornerstone of our process. Since July last year, we've released a discussion paper, we've engaged in a series of roundtables and regional tours with over 250 stakeholders, we launched a survey and a public submission process. In November, we hosted the New South Wales Skills Symposium, which was also attended by over 100 stakeholders from across the sector, and some of you may have been there. We also established an expert advisory panel to assist us with our work, and that panel was made up of people representing key agencies and peak bodies, and we have been incredibly impressed really by the enthusiasm, the support, the goodwill, the expertise that group of people brought to our work and our deliberations. They were really instrumental in deepening our insights into the core challenges faced by people at the coalface of delivery of VET and in scoping solutions that we hope will make a tangible difference going forward. The Minister talked about our interim report. It came on the back of extensive consultation in the second half of last year. We submitted that report to government and it was publicly released in March this year, and hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at that. It does form part one, or it did form part one of our review process, and was really developed for two main purposes. The first to reflect on what we'd heard through the consultation process, through the roundtables and the stakeholder engagements, and to outline our directions really for further consideration in the second half. So it was very much an interim report. And it was also about responding to the New South Wales Government's request of us to consider immediate reform areas. What priority recommendations could we offer with a particular focus on TAFE as the state's public provider of VET. Across all of our consultations, I think it's fair to say that there was broad consensus that while TAFE's position and influence had been eroded somewhat over the last decade, that it should remain the strategic asset through which the government can address the skills and workforce needs of the state. Our view is that TAFE New South Wales should be viewed as the backbone of the training system in New South Wales, and that the New South Wales government should seek to support and grow this asset to make it as strong as it can be. Accordingly, our interim report makes 7 recommendations for the New South Wales government focused on rebuilding TAFE New South Wales and strengthening the wider vocational training sector. This includes the development of a public-facing New South Wales TAFE charter, which would set out clear expectations as part of a broader TAFE renewal process. Additionally, we recommended that the New South Wales government develop and implement a revised operating model for TAFE New South Wales to ensure that it is more responsive to industry needs and enhances local connection. We also made recommendations where we saw opportunities across critical vet delivery settings in New South Wales. These include a recommendation to support the vet teaching workforce by prioritising and expanding the permanency of our teachers and ensuring their primary focus remains teaching and learning and not administration. And we're really pleased to note that there is work already underway on developing the TAFE charter and implementing the new operating model. Following submission of our interim report, we immediately turned our focus to the review's final report. I think we had a week off for Christmas, Verity, and then we got straight back into it, Minister, you'll be pleased to know. No rest for the wicked. And as the Minister said, that we submitted that last week. So what I failed to mention is today is actually our last formal engagement as a panel. Yeah, so thank you. So a real privilege for us and you to share that with us. As far as we know. So whilst the interim report had a strong TAFE focus, our final report examines challenges and opportunities for government across the broader vet system, including the important role of private and community providers. The process to develop the final report has involved further, more targeted community engagement and stakeholder engagement to build off the directions for further exploration that we identified in our interim report. In addition to this, and this is why we're tired, we have reviewed more than 75 written submissions and over 1,100 responses to our public survey, which drew a really strong response from current and past vet trainers and teachers. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Verity, who's going to tell you a little bit more about.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks again for having us here today. And also I'd like to acknowledge the Darug people as well, on whose land we are meeting. So yes, as Jason's outlined, our 12-month review process, it was great actually. I work in universities now. I used to be Minister for Education, but I work in universities, so I hadn't been as much at the coalface of vocational education and training for a while. And it was so good going out again and meeting all the incredible people that work in vet and all the amazing people that also work in the school space in vet, because there's such a commitment in the vocational education and training workforce, and it sort of oozes out of people when you're doing the consultation, and it was really inspiring to be around that again. I had a really good time. So as Jason's also outlined, there's not much we can tell you about what's in our second report, but we can at least talk you through some of the reflections that we got back so that you know at least what we've been hearing. And then when you read the second report, you'll be able to see why it is that we've drawn those conclusions. We heard unanimously that VET for secondary students is integral to supporting post-school success and can play a crucial role in meeting future workforce needs. And as I said before, we heard these really inspiring stories about the role VET in schools in particular can play in terms of keeping students engaged and setting them up for really good post-schooling options and careers. So what I thought I'd talk you through at least today is the key feedback we got around VET for secondary students in schools, key feedback around equity and tertiary integration, and then at least you can know roughly where we're heading. So across our consultations, stakeholders highlighted the significant value of VET for secondary students, which of course we refer to as VETS, SS, It equips students with nationally recognised workplace skills, lifts student outcomes and supports post-school success. We heard rich sector feedback on areas of reform and progress, which have led to improvements in the way students experience VET across all school sectors. However, and I don't think I'll be saying anything new to this room, our consultations also revealed ongoing system-wide concerns where VET continues to struggle for legitimacy, parity and priority within secondary education, particularly senior secondary education. The way it's often viewed is a mechanism to support retention. So we heard a lot about supporting retention outcomes, offering taster programs, enabling employment pathways, but it's still always perceived as an alternative secondary option for many rather than an aspirational career paving pathway for students. Stakeholders consistently told us that current approaches to VET's curriculum offerings are complex, rigid and lack alignment with industry needs. A major concern was the rigidity of curriculum pathways of VET courses. Not surprisingly, there were strong views regarding examination requirements for students undertaking HSC VET, which were criticised for undermining the strengths of VET's competency-based approach. We did have, obviously, sessions with NESA around this issue, and the good thing is we had really good sessions with NESA around this issue, and they're very open to, as the Minister's actually already referred to, but they're very open to looking at the ways we can reform the system. Another common theme that emerged in our discussions was the importance of supporting careers advisors in their roles and improving information for students. And I felt sorry for careers advisors in this respect, because one of the feedback we got in our stakeholder group was careers advisors are extremely dedicated to the roles they play and work really, really hard to have the up-to-date information. But that's often difficult, especially when careers advisors are often doing dual roles in schools. So they're also teaching English or also teaching, filling in for the PE class or whatever it might be, and that this was preventing a sort of deep knowledge that careers advisors really need in our constantly changing landscape. None of these insights were particularly new, but we recognise there have been ongoing areas of reform and initiatives to respond to some of these challenges. However, really more does need to be done to break down some of the barriers and to lift the parity and esteem of VET in schools. More importantly, we need to appropriately reward and recognise students for undertaking vocational education pathways. So that's the feedback on VET in schools. Then I thought I'd take you through the tertiary integration feedback. So tertiary integration really is how do you combine secondary schooling. The Minister needs to go. Goodbye, Minister. Now I'm free to speak my mind.
I was hoping he was going to take the questions.
So we know that there's a need for greater collaboration between VET and higher education. Like VET and universities, we're aware that New South Wales is already doing some really interesting things in this space through tertiary education models like the Institute for Applied Technology pilots and the New Education Training Model. And these are new ways that universities and TAFE and industry work together to create very specific types of courses and offerings for people. So this is great, but there's not that many of them and they're still in that really new phase. So they're pilot-based approaches and they do present sustainability challenges for the future of these integrated models, as much as everyone says they're important. So that's one issue. There's also a lack of consistent recognition of prior learning and credit arrangements across the tertiary system. This includes specific challenges in terms of granting recognition of prior learning in the VET sector due to financial disincentives, as well as inconsistent articulation arrangements between VET and university. Now, working in universities, it's really interesting. Some universities do this really well and have really good, close relationships with their local TAFE, and they do this really well. Other universities don't. But actually getting a cross-systems approach is extremely complicated, but must be done if we want to start to really uplifting participation in higher education and training, as well as, of course, just delivering the sorts of learning that we're going to need in the 21st century. We understand that overcoming these challenges require broad collaboration across the sector, and this also includes universities obviously being open and willing to work. However, we do think the timing is right, and we think the timing is right because the federal government are extremely keen to do this, and they're extremely keen to fund this sort of work. So the federal government have already announced $27 million just to start working on integration and recognition of prior learning. So there's a real opportunity for New South Wales to actually say, yeah, we want to be a leader in this space and look at the way we can pull these sectors together and boost attainment and meet those attainment targets that we all would like to see happen. Speaking of attainment targets, equity and access. So the good thing is that the VET system is a critical pathway for engaging students with complex needs and those who experience disadvantage. While New South Wales tracks well against national averages for equity cohorts in terms of participation, students with a backdrop of disadvantage continue to have lower completion rates and employment outcomes than their peers. And somewhat alarmingly, 1 in 3 Australians from the lowest socioeconomic backgrounds find themselves neither engaged in learning or working. 1 in 3, that's an enormous proportion really. So what we know from the evidence is that wraparound and individualised supports are especially vital to support learners to overcome training and non-training barriers. And furthermore, foundation skills serve as an important pathway into further studies, employment and social engagement for vulnerable learners. And so much of our foundational skills are delivered through the VET sector, particularly community VET. In light of this, however, stakeholders told us that current funding and program arrangements act as barriers in enabling provision of these skills and support for learners who need them to succeed. Enhancing these supports will be crucial to better assist those facing multiple types of disadvantage, especially where there are both training and non-training barriers. So barriers such as transport, housing and family challenges. And last but not least, I thought I'd give you the feedback we've heard around industry and skills. This is always the bugbear in vocational education and training. How do you stay up to date with the needs of industry and make sure that the skills are relevant for the jobs that are being created in the economy as we speak? So we recognise that the review is taking place within the context of significant and profound skills shortages, both at the state and national level. In New South Wales, across every sector, chronic and pervasive skills shortages persist alongside rising demand for labour. These issues are even more pronounced in regional areas, with additional constraints associated with higher provider cost to deliver in those areas. So central to our discussion on skills shortages was a strong emphasis on data. Stakeholders consistently highlighted the need for robust planning data to effectively prepare for New South Wales's future economic and workforce demands, and in particular to support the emerging New South Wales Skills Plan. And at our summit, which some of you were at in the room, I can recognise you, we had a really great presentation from Jobs and Skills Australia, which is the new federal body, where they did show us the data, where the skills shortages, like what industries the skills shortages were in and what geographical area needed the most. And it was really illuminating. And one of the biggest comments to come after we showed that data to everyone was, why don't we just have more access to data like that for both public and private providers? Because that's what really gives you the capacity to be able to meet the needs, collectively meet the needs of the nation. So the good news is the federal government have been talking about using that data in a system stewardship approach, a sense that all of us are all working together to meet greater goals, and we're doing that through the transparency of the data. So hopefully we'll see some more work in that space. But that's the feedback, and now I'm going to hand back to Jason to wrap it up.
Thanks, Verity. So throughout our review, what has been made very clear to us is that skills and capabilities of the New South Wales workforce will be increasingly essential in addressing many of our state's most significant challenges. Whether that's about affordable housing, whether that's about supporting the care economy, whether that's about transitioning to net zero. Having a workforce with the right skills and the opportunity to get relevant training and quality training is going to be critical. Verity's just talked about the Jobs and Skills Australia data. What it tells us is that the demand for vet qualified workers is going to rise significantly over the next decade, that post-school qualifications will become increasingly important, and that the system's going to have to engage with every learner to meet the ambitious attainment targets that are outlined in the recent Australian Universities Accord process. And to meet these priorities, the vet system in New South Wales has to reform and has to evolve. So our final report goes to that, and it provides our observations and our recommendations to the government to build on the vet system's current strengths. So we've taken a strengths-based approach, but emphasising where we think change is required. And some further examples beyond the things that Verity's just spoken about. Our review also underscores the importance of many of the key enablers of the system, particularly things, well, again, the teaching workforce, and ensuring that we continue to attract and retain more skilled trainers, educators and assessors. Evolving the vet funding model to meet new expectations for TAFE, and also to support high quality providers to meet student and skill needs across the state. And of course ensuring that we have appropriate, accessible and well-maintained facilities and infrastructure, that these are going to be vital to our training delivery going forward. While we've embraced the commitment to deliver a comprehensive review, and we like to think we've been bold in the things that we've recommended, we do recognise that this review is just one part of a wider change program that will be required for the New South Wales vet system. That said, if through our review we can direct the conversation so that learners are at the centre of the reform and delivery is more attuned to industry needs, then we'll be satisfied. I think that we've done our job and that we'll be back on track to restoring the vet and TAFE system, the vet system and TAFE particularly as key drivers of our state's economy. So that's it from us. Just in closing, we'd like to again thank you for the opportunity and just say that we really do acknowledge and appreciate all of you for your dedication, for your passion and the contributions that you make to achieving better outcome for the learners of our state and our communities. We've been really impressed everywhere we've gone, the effort, the above and beyond the call that we see teachers and vet teachers and trainers put in has just been incredible and an absolute inspiration, I think. So thank you.